And we have takes. Welcome to Football Takes.
Football, yeah! Football!
Okay, gather around, football-loving friends. Prepare to learn from our guy, Thor Nystrom, draft expert here at Score North and across everyone's internet. And he is here continuing the top 10 NFL draft prospect ranking series with the 10 best wide receivers, 10 through 1 in this year's draft. Thor, before we get into the rankings here, kind of like we did to start the running back episode, if you guys missed that, we're doing this for all of the different position groups. Just broadly, your thoughts on this year's wide receiver class compared to kind of the barometer or average wide receiver class?
I think this is a solid receiver class, and this is one of the very few positions in the 2026 draft that improved during the fall as opposed to regressed. And we found, more wide receiver prospects that sort of jumped on to the draft radar and some, moved their stock up and everything like that. And it's a better receiver class than we thought we were going to get, and it's a deeper receiver class than we thought we were going to get. So this is a decent year to be shopping for receivers. It's not an elite class, but it's a decent class, and it does have some depth.
So let's dive in here. And by the way, if you're new or maybe you've dabbled and haven't done so yet, welcome to Football Takes, our new football podcast here on the Score North Network. Thor on every episode. Myself, Phil Mackey, and Judd Zolgad also have covered the NFL and have hosted many NFL radio shows and podcasts over the years. All of us together make up Football Takes. And if you could hit the subscribe button on the Football Takes YouTube channel, the like button on this episode if you enjoy it, and also find us on Apple and Spotify. We will in turn give you Football Takes. In this episode, it's the form of 10 wide receivers, starting with WR10 here, Thor.
That's Germie Bernard, most recently of Alabama. I comp him to Robert Woods, Bobby Trees, our old friend. Germie Bernard, 6'1.25", 207 pounds. He's well built. Put up a RAS of 9.07 during the pre-draft process. This guy's been overlooked his whole football career. I mean, when he started with Washington with DeBoer, he was playing behind Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, and also a guy that we're going to he played ahead of this guy, a guy that we're going to talk about later in Denzel Boston. But then when he transfers over to Alabama, follows DeBoer, then it's the Ryan Williams show there, and all the other receivers that Alabama ended up having. I like the combination of traits, though, here on Bernard. He's one of the guys in this class that can interchangeably play the boundary and the slot, and smart play callers have gotten really good at this, of moving guys around in order to create mismatches. Bernard last year, he started out good, and then when Ty Simpson kind of went into the tank down the stretch, so to kind of Bernard's productivity, he has proven it though over his career, and he even started the very first school he was at was Michigan State before he hooked up with Kalen DeBoer there. But I like the agility there. I like the reliability. I like his route running. It's not an elite athlete, and there's not one single thing he does where he doesn't have like a Chris Brazzell, like his downfield speed, or some of these other guys that have a trump. Jordyn Tyson is the body control and some of the ball skills. He doesn't have like a trump card like this, but he's good at everything. He doesn't have a major weakness, and the interchangeability of Germie Bernard, the reliability over the middle of Germie Bernard, he's been referred to as a glue guy of a wide receiver room, and that's kind of how I think about him as well. He's a really good complementary piece. He's not going to be a wide receiver one in the NFL, but this guy's going to be a solid starter, I think, for a long time.
I love it. And by the way, ignore the Phil Mackey graphic typo of WR8. He's WR10, and we're going to move into WR9. You could just envision the new graphic in your own head here, folks. But let's move into WR9, Thorsky.
Is Chris Bell from Louisville, who I comped to Treylon Burks, 6'1" and 7/8", 222 pounds. Did not test during the pre-draft process, unfortunately, because he tore his ACL against SMU in late November. Did Chris Bell. He was having a great season up until then. He had 72 catches, 917 yards, 6 touchdowns through 11 games before suffering that injury. But that's why we didn't see him in the pre-draft process. But Chris Bell is really unique in that you look at the dimensions and how well built he is. Basically, the thing that you do with Chris Bell is you send him across the middle. He's really good at using his frame. He's going to catch the ball, and he's a problem after the catch. because it's like a big, I mean, just think it's like a big running back now downfield, right at those dimensions at, 6'2", 225 or so. He also has explosion. He's going to break arm tackles, and that's how he becomes like a big time rack guy. A good catcher of the football as well. Sometimes you see some clapping with him, but overall, you hit him on the hands when he's moving. And lead him into space, and then he's going to start breaking tackles and getting downfield. The question with him, of course, it's the medicals and combine medical rechecks are happening this week, so we should get more sort of news about that. It's too bad that he couldn't test. Would have loved to see the kind of athlete he was. He appears to be a really good one in a big package, but yeah, we're gonna, we're not going to see that because of the injury.
I mean, okay, the 222. I'm putting you on the spot here, but that's like, what percentile of NFL wide receiver weight is that in 2026? Like 90, 99th, 95th?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a big boy, man.
Big boy. Yeah, and what are you going to? You put him outside, put him in the slot. He's done both at the college level, but it's the same sort of thing. Just get the ball in his hands, watch him break tackles, and gobble up yards. That's what you're doing with Chris Bell. Hopefully, he comes back soon, healthy. Obviously, you're coming off the November injury there. Is he going to be ready for training camp? We'll have to see on that. But I do like Chris Bell. The conversion of his game going to the next level.
All right, wide receiver 8 as we continue to go down this list.
Wide receiver 8 is a small school gem here in Ted Hurst, coming from Georgia State. I comp him to Sidney Rice.
Yes. Ted
Hurst, 6'3" and 7/8", 207 pounds, 9'9" RAS on this kid, and he's young. He's not even 22 yet. I happened to do shows at the last place I was employed at Fantasy Life with a guy named Gene Clemens. Gene Clemens, he coached Ted Hurst in high school. And so I at the combine, I ran into Gene. And so I said, Gene, I want to tell you my Ted Hurst comp, and like, go easy on me. Like if you don't like it, but like, I watched a lot of this other guy play, being a Vikings fan, whatever. And I feel like there's similarities here. And I told him it's Sidney Rice, and I sort of braced myself, and Gene thought about it for a second. He goes, I kind of love that. And I was like, okay, yeah, well then we're gonna stamp it. It's gonna be Sidney Rice. But Ted Hurst, he started out his college career at Valdosta State. So I mean, we think he was at a small school now, going to Georgia State, but started out at an even smaller one. Last couple of years with Georgia State, a team that did not throw the ball very well. Hurst had almost 2,000 yards in total over those 2 seasons, 15 touchdowns. Last season alone, 71 catches for 1,004 yards in 12 games. First ever Georgia State player to be named to Bruce Feldman's freak list, and we got to see his athleticism during the pre-draft process. He was also on the Biletnikoff Award watch list. The ball skills are really good with Ted Hurst down the field. You have possession elements with Ted Hurst, but it's also a guy that can beat you downfield. So that's sort of the dichotomy you're looking at there. He's a tall receiver. He has long arms. You have a big catch radius there. But the intermediate stuff, some of those guys, they're just linear, and all you can do is sort of throw it to them downtown. You're like a Valdez Scantling, or like somebody like it's a straight line. Hurst has a little bit more nuance to his game than that, and that's projecting the possession thing to the next level. The body, the pliability of Ted Hurst, you see him sinking his hips when he gets into route breaks and able to get down there and then make a quick cut over. That kind of stuff is going to throw open throwing windows for his quarterbacks at the next level. And again, with the big catch radius and the reliable hands he's going to be a chain mover at the next level. His contested catch, going back to the downfield thing, contested catch ability, really good. 61.1% career contested catch rate for him. He's a long strider, needs to build up to that high speed, but he does get there pretty quick and just starts gobbling up yards with the long strides there. Couple weaknesses on him. He needs to keep adding muscle to his frame. He is a skinny kind of, a linear kind of boundary receiver. And at the next level, I imagine that boundary cornerbacks are going to want to get into his chest and make him prove that he can get off the line. So that's going to be something that he's going to have to work on, that play strength. There had been some concentration drops in the past, but it's an area of his game that greatly improved as we went along. I like Ted Hurst a lot. On my board, he is going to be a late second rounder. He doesn't get talked about a lot like that, but this guy can make plays, and I think his best football is ahead of him.
Man, I texted you about the Sidney Rice thing last night, and we're never going to know what a non-hip injury, and the knee, man, like that dude came in the league second round pick. He had a little knee thing right away that kind of hindered his first training camp in 2007, which I actually covered as a beat writer. And then he had the huge season with Brett Favre at quarterback in 2009, and he literally emerged as one of like the top 15 receivers in the league. So if Ted Hurst can carry the torch of Sidney Rice, and we can see what that looks like long term, I would be very happy.
And hopefully we get a clean career there from injuries. We get to see how it would have played out, over an entire career.
All right, WR7, Thor.
Is Chris Brazzell, the second from Tennessee. I comp him to Martavis Bryant. Brazzell, 6'4" and an eighth, 199 pounds. This is your big-time size speed guy in this class, and he is a monster down the field. Teams that could not stop that last season, they would just keep doing it. Great example of that was early in the season. Tennessee played Georgia, and I've talked about this in Dalen Everett. He's a Georgia cornerback when I talk about his evaluation. But Dalen Everett came out of camp nicked up, but he wanted to play at the start of the season. He ought to have done what left-handed batters used to do against Randy Johnson and take his day off that day, because Chris Brazzell had his way with Everett and with all other comers, that day. But like downtown, they just could not stop him. Brazzell with that kind of size is 6'4", very long arms, and he has the leaping ability too. 4.3 speed on this guy, so he can get down there in a hurry, and then he gets up off the carpet. You have to keep a deep safety back on him at all times, or he's going to hit the dingers. And that's a thing that's going to improve your other receivers' games, right? They're all going to get extra spacing. It's something you see, for instance, with Christian Watson with the Packers, the separation rate and the yards per separation per route run of the Packer receivers, they all go up when Christian Watson's on the field. Everybody gets more space when he's on the field. Chris Brazzell is going to be very similar in terms of that. Brazzell, relative weaknesses there. A lot of the stuff is downtown, although I will say he is really good against zone coverage. He's even better against zone than he is against man, which is something that I prioritize a little bit more. Can we get some more nuance from him going forward to his game? It's, again, so devastating down the field, and that Tennessee offense, they leverage that kind of a thing. Brazzell, it was only the 1 year where he really took off, so it's sort of a one-year wonder. Can we see some more of that nuance? And then the other thing, a part of the reason that we didn't see him emerge until last season, there was some off the field, minor kind of thing. He's gotten in some minor problems out the field. The last summer there was something with driving, but we didn't know if he was going to get suspended, and we didn't know if he was going to be in the dog. He's been in the doghouse with some coaching staffs in the past, and then all of a sudden the season starts, and it was like, oh my God, the Chris Brazzell we had been waiting for multiple. He was just there. He started out his career at Tulane, and we'd see these flashes, every now and again from him of like, my God, this guy who's like huge, and he has these long arms, and he runs like a gazelle, and he can get up off the carpet. But could he become more consistent and stuff like that? And during the fall, at least with Tennessee, he became a star last season. And I think that's what is going to get him taken in round 2 of the NFL draft. But you do have some of those minor concerns.
Feels like a Raider. So yeah. A 4.3 40, some off the field stuff, burner. You could, if you squint, you can see 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Well, it's funny because they took the guy that Brazzell took over for the year before. That was Dante Thornton. And the Raiders took him. But maybe you could put both of them there and just go verticals on the side and just open up all kinds of space for Mr. Brock Bowers. Yeah.
By the way, do you remember, you made a Randy Johnson reference. Do you remember, did you watch baseball all-star games in the early 90s when John Kruk decided during an all-star game? I'm just going to I'm a left-handed hitter. I don't want to do this against Randy Johnson. I'm going to go to the right-handed batter's box and turn my helmet around.
Yeah, didn't he put the batting helmet on backwards?
Yes,
Yeah,
and he just like swung and missed at ridiculous sliders, and that was a wrap.
Yeah, I would not have stepped into the batter's box against Randy Johnson either. So I can't. No hate here.
No, not even. I wouldn't stand in the on deck circle against Randy Johnson. There's no way. Okay, number 6 here, wide receiver 6
is Indiana wide receiver Omar Cooper Jr., who I comp to Chris Godwin. Cooper is 6 foot, 201 pounds, 885 RAS here during the pre-draft process. Broke out last year, obviously, for the national champions and had one of the great catches that we've seen in college football in order to retain Indiana. They were a perfect national champion because Omar Cooper caught that ball from Mendoza back of the end zone against Penn State in the fall.
Crazy catch.
One of the craziest catches you'll ever. You talk about levitating in the air, and then he just snatched that thing out, and then he somehow got even though his momentum was going out the back of the end zone, somehow maneuvered his feet to somehow tap in just inside the white line as he went down. But over the entire season, 69 catches, 937 yards. 13 touchdowns. This guy scores a lot of touchdowns, and perhaps that catch would speak to it. He's very physical, very, very tough, and he's tough to bring down after he has the ball in his hands. Hard-nosed guy. He transitions from receiver to runner really quickly, and then he's going to look to run through arm tackles is basically what he does. He makes his money over the middle of in addition to in the red zone, as we've seen, but over the middle of the field, digs, crossers, slants, all that kind of stuff. Just get the ball in his hands, and he's going to do something with it. Love his route running. It's like I think of tempo, with some like as a jet ski, and you can go fast and then you can toggle it back, whatever you want to do. Omar Cooper is one of those jet ski type route runners where the tempo is always just perfectly married to the situation. He's always manipulating the defensive back. You'll see him do something early in the game and then bring it back later in order to go against the expectation of the same guy. Just one of those just really, really clever guys. Timing-based offenses are going to love him because he's one of those guys where it's always married to the exact cadence of the play call. So he's going to be at the route break, the millisecond he said he's going to be out of it the millisecond. He's going to be turning his head. Everything that's practice, Omar Cooper is going to bring that into a game. The relative weaknesses on him, late breakout age, which the data in the NFL, you have to bring it up because the most successful receivers that we've had, again, over the ocean of data, there's always exceptions, but have been guys that have broken out earlier in their career. And then not much of a blocker on Omar Cooper. The hard-nosed thing that you see with him with the ball in his hands, you don't always see that blocking. And if he's going to be a slot receiver in the NFL, you're obviously a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. There's better run defenders at the nickel in the NFL, so he's going to have to do a better job trying to get in front of them and at least be a speed bump. But a guy who broke out in a big way this past season and a guy that is a zone killer. And I've mentioned this on some of the shows, but earlier in my time doing this, evolution with every position, the way you evaluate it. But with receivers, I wanted to see you destroy man coverage, and make your separation with that. And that was the thing that I liked the most, or I prioritized the most. Whereas now the preponderance of zone coverage in the NFL and the different skill set that you need to succeed against that, but you see 75% plus zone coverage preponderance in the NFL. You better be able to beat zone. That is Omar Cooper. He's a zone killer.
And you kind of mentioned the slot nature of his college career to this point. 83.5% slot percentage in terms of the pass snaps. Does that line up? I mean, is he a slot guy in the NFL, or does that number go down in the NFL in the right offense?
I believe he should be, and I don't think it's a coincidence that he truly broke out when he was moved to a full-time slot role this past season. He will not find a better head coach in the NFL than he is leaving. Signetti is going to put you in the right spot and tailor it to your skill set. And I think he figured out the destiny for Omar Cooper. And I expect the NFL to keep going along with that. The guys who can catch the ball no matter what, they're not going to break their concentration. You can smack them in the chest. They're going to go through that, working around the congested quarters, making the catches, different stuff like that. Very valuable skill in the NFL, and being able to work over the middle of the field. And that's what Omar Cooper is going to do at the next level.
All right, let's keep the train moving here. Getting into the top 5.
So wide receiver 5, Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M via North Carolina State. I comp him to Santonio Holmes. You remember him, Phil?
Oh, yes.
Going back in the
Was he Indiana? No, where did he go to college? Santonio Holmes.
Santonio Holmes. Oh man, you put me on the spot. Steelers. It's a little bit before my time
early 2000s.
of evaluating. Yeah, but just a shade under 6 feet with KC Concepcion, just a shade under 200 pounds. Didn't do the testing during the pre-draft process, but he's an insane athlete. Last year at A&M is where he truly broke out. Led the SEC with 9 receiving touchdowns, 61 catches for 919 yards. Also won the Paul Hornung Award, Phil, which as a Notre Dame guy you'll appreciate. But
right.
KC Concepcion, his game, it's an after the catch guy, but it's different than with Cooper, where Cooper it's like toughness and vision, and that kind of stuff down the field and breaking arm tackles. Concepcion, it's the athletic profile with him. It's hitting the NOS button and then gobbling up yards really, really quickly. He does have good vision too. Concepcion, it's like there's some kick returner there. When he's sort of maneuvering down the field, he can also make defenders miss. Inside outside versatility for Concepcion, and I think more so. Some folks might not agree with me on this, but for me, definitely more versatile than Cooper. I want Cooper in the slot at the next level, whereas I think Concepcion could do the thing like I was talking about with Germie Bernard. It's just Concepcion is more dynamic, but the interchangeable thing inside outside. I saw Concepcion beat several future guys that are respected boundary NFL prospects in this class at Texas A&M. So I know that he can do that. I know he can get off the line. He's got a good release package. He's a run after the catch, just maven. Couple weaknesses with him. Better against man than zone to this point in his career. And I just went on my spiel about that. Concepcion got to get a little bit better against zone coverage. Smaller catch radius on him. It's just a smaller kind of a frame. And then we have seen concentration drops in the past with Concepcion that he's going to need to clean up. 19 drops over the last 3 seasons. Career drop rate of 10.3% is just into that sort of, red flag starting to go up there. You have to keep that in the single digits. So it's not egregious, but you have to bring it up. It's something he needs to clean up.
2 things. Santonio Holmes. It was a long time ago. It was early 2000s. Ohio State Super Bowl hero Santonio Holmes had one of the great Super Bowl games ever. 9 catches, $131, crazy touchdown. To what extent do drop problems? To what extent can you coach that out? There's been so many examples of high athleticism guys come in and like, well, we'll teach them how to catch a ball or teach them better mechanics, but how coachable is that from college to the NFL?
I think some folks would argue that it is. I think some folks would argue that it isn't. If you look over the data, but the thing that I'm more concerned about is ball skills than the drop rate. Because I think that's the thing that the drop rate, you will see that fluctuate, and there are players where it's a persistent problem, and so that you have to bring it up. But there is some major variance to drop rate, right? You'll see a guy 1 year it'd be 2.5%. The next year it's 11.3. Then the next year it's 7. Whatever. They'll sort of bounce around. Whereas ball skills and your ability to sort of greet the ball and the way that you position your body and that kind of stuff, that's something that it carries over. Right. And so to me, that is the more translatable thing. That's the thing I'm going to hang my hat on a little bit more, which isn't to say that you can't drop the ball. Right. I mean, so I'm not saying that I don't consider that at all, but I prioritize the ball skills just a little bit more.
Yeah. You don't condone dropping the ball,
but
there are other things to maybe be nervous about. Okay. All right. WR4.
For me is Denzel Boston from Washington, the aforementioned Denzel Boston, who I comp to Cortland Sutton, almost 6'4". Denzel Boston, 212 pounds. For a big receiver, Denzel Boston moves around really, really good. Obviously he has that physically imposing frame, really good ball skills on a huge distended catch radius on Denzel Boston. He's got the long arms. He's an underrated athlete. We didn't get to see, the full testing profile with him, and he didn't really need to because he's going to go in the first round. We did see, the stuff that he did, 37.5-inch vert is solid. 6.83 cone is really, really good for his size especially. And then 4.28 shuttle is really solid for his size as well. The speed thing, I don't know why he didn't run, because we had reports that he's run confirmed 4.4s in the past. And then you look at the on-field, he's been clocked over 22 miles per hour on the field on the GPS. That is flying.
Jeez.
That's flying in the NFL. So I don't I guess we'd have to get inside, his head or whatever. But like we just didn't see that. But I know he's fast. He's good at tracking the ball downfield. He is a red zone weapon. The fades, that different stuff. He's really, really good at. And good awareness of the sidelines. This sort of thing. He has the thing with Concepcion, which you have to bring up, that he is better against man coverage than he is against zone. Would love to see Boston improve against zone. Is that something that he can do? We'll have to see, but it has to be brought up. Against man, he does not create the separation that maybe he should because of that athletic profile, but he's another guy, and he gets comped sometimes to Keon Coleman, which I totally disagree with. Keon Coleman the whole thing was straight line, and then Keon Coleman was the former basketball player. So in college, he'd impress people because he just jumped real high downfield, but it's like there was literally zero nuance to his game, and there was no side to side with Keon Coleman. With Denzel Boston, there is. But one of the similarities that they have is both those guys liked having the body around them when the ball was coming. They want to know because they both use their big body. So they want to, it's sort of like you have to feel it to be comfortable, right? Kind of a thing. And so, I made this point about Keon Coleman, although with Boston, again, Boston is a better athlete overall than Keon Coleman, but like that's what he sort of wanted, right? And then he knows I have to box you out. I need to know where you are if I'm going to box you out, whatever. But Denzel Boston isn't working relentlessly to try to create separation against man coverage. He wants to use his big frame, pin you behind his back, use the big catch radius, and then he's going to try to fight you after the catch.
I personally love the PFF run block grade being above 75. That's another thing. I mean, if you're a big kind of lanky, big-bodied receiver, and you can, think about the offenses. Like even if he turns out to be a guy that can be great and trustworthy as a run blocking receiver, and he's a big red zone target and a third down target, like there's a lot of value there in some of these margins for Denzel Boston.
It's funny you bring that up, Phil. On our running back episode, which we just dropped here on the channel, I really like Jonah Coleman, who was, his teammate the last couple of years at Washington. And one of the only annoying things about Jonah's film was, every now and again he would try to bounce outside, and you don't nitpick him too much for it because the bad offensive lines he played with at Washington. But like, I think some of these times he was going towards Boston's around that side of because it's like he's going to erase the dude that he's blocking, and there's already penetration, right? So he was going to where I actually have a competent blocker. It just didn't work because he doesn't have the athletic explosion, Jonah Coleman. But the point's well taken.
Yeah. Football. All right, into the top three.
Into the top three we go, starting with wide receiver 3, Makai Lemon from USC. Comp him to Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5'11" and an eighth, 194 pounds. Makai Lemon, another guy that we do not get the testing profile on during the pre-draft process. But Makai Lemon is your reigning Biletnikoff winner. Obviously, he's a compact slot, but last season he led the Power 4 conference in receiving yards, also yards per game, had 74 catches in 12 games total. With over 1,100 receiving yards, but just a very, very natural slot receiver. His routes are incredible. He's one of those like tell the story guy. It's another one where he's going to do stuff early in the game to set stuff up later in the game. He's always sort of manipulating you, and then it's a weird kind of mover guy where like the defensive backs, as they're sort of retreating, there's like I don't want to say herky-jerky, but they never really know where he's going to go. It's Makai Lemon has some of that bow-legged thing that they talk about with Jefferson, and the ability to then kind of, use that to sort of manipulate how defenders think you're going to move. It's just a little bit different than with other wide receivers, and he can cut so quickly. So wherever he's going to do that route break, you don't know when it's coming, and then you don't know what direction he's going to go, and then he's going to do something early in the game, and then at that same exact route break, same guy later in the game, now he's going to go the other way, right, to try to do that. So he's just constantly manipulating defensive backs, strong hands, great route feel, very good running after the catch with the ball as well. And he's even a decent and contested catch situation with him more topically for the NFL, working around all the garbage that he's going to have to over the middle of the field. But 67% career contested catch rate on him. The weaknesses for Makai Lemon, they're obvious ones, right? Like confined to the slot. That's what he's going to be at the next level. He's going to be a really good one, but he's confined to the slot. He's not an elite athlete. He has small hands. I mean, that's 8 3/4. But that's what it is. Just a prolific receiver who is going to be a star slot receiver from day one in the NFL.
Yeah. He's super intriguing. He had kind of a weird combine week. He went viral for just kind of a couple weird like personality things, the podium stuff, but I think like at the end of the day, like what does the tape say, and can you produce for a football team?
That's it.
Are you willing blocker as well?
Yeah, and he gets after it for sure. The ceiling, absolutely. You can say that it's a little bit lower because it's not like the alpha boundary guy, but we've over and over again. I mean, Phil, it seems like every single year, right? Like Egbuka, Smith and Jigba, Amon-Ra St. Brown, they all get nitpicked during their pre-draft process, and then they all go in and they're lo and behold, they're good. Just like they were every year that we saw them in college, right? So, Makai Lemon, I'm not super concerned. It's a very, very high floor. That part is going to translate. You want to say he's not going to be like a super duper star, that's fine. That's why I have him as wide receiver 3, but love him in the slot.
All right, number 2, WR2.
Number 2 is a guy that I'm going to end up higher on than consensus or the rest of the industry, and I would say he would be even higher for me if it wasn't for medical concerns. He would have been my wide receiver 1. I finally had to knock him to 2 because of some of the concerns there. We'll get into it in a second. But Jordyn Tyson, the wide receiver from Arizona State, I comp him to Amari Cooper, 6'2" 1/8", 203 pounds, just 21 years old. Jordyn Tyson, 2024. Breakout season, 75 catches, 1,100 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns. He's the Big 12 Offensive Newcomer of the Year. Last season at Arizona State, he led in all the major, of course, receiving categories, was first team all Big 12. But he suffered another injury, a hamstring injury, limited him to 9 games. The injury stuff with him, Phil, you go back to his true freshman year when he was actually at Colorado. He was interestingly enough, he was on the Colorado team right before Coach Prime. So remember in Coach Prime, he got in and he's like, I'm bringing my Louis. And, so a lot of you guys are going to be out of here. Jordyn Tyson was actually one of the guys that was out of there. Now, I think they wanted, unlike some of the other guys, Colorado wanted to retain him, but maybe didn't try as hard as they could have because Jordyn Tyson was coming off of, from the previous season, torn ACL, torn MCL, and torn PCL. He suffered on a play at Colorado as a freshman. Then then he had to work back, right? Like he transferred when Coach Prime gets there. He goes to Arizona State. He had to sit out for a year rehabbing the injuries. But then when he comes back, now he's good. But then he breaks his clavicle in 2024 during his breakout season. And then last year you have the hamstring injury. So it's always seems like it's something with Jordyn Tyson. During the pre-draft process, we didn't get the testing profile from him. And it's like, is the hamstring, I guess, was cited for that. And it's like, well, that's fine, except then you're saying that hamstring injury from the fall, that you still have it, that's a bit problematic in lieu of your lower body injuries that we've seen here the last several years. I love his game, though. I absolutely love he annihilates single coverage. He's good against zone too, but absolutely annihilates single coverage. You can't stay with him in man. 4.62 yards per route run against man coverage in 2024, Phil. He's a former track star. He was a long jumper, and you can see that he's one of those levitate guys. When he gets up off the carpet, he just sort of stays up in the air. But the medicals with him, where is that going to leave him? Is it always going to be a concern? Is it not going to be a concern? Is it going to be nagging? Is it going to be serious? Like, we just don't know yet. And again, prospects this week going back to Indianapolis for the combine medical recheck. So we'll have to see where we come out with all that kind of stuff. On the field, I love this guy's game. It's another interchangeable inside-outside kind of a guy. The only real nitpick I have with him, he's so talented that sometimes he gets nonchalant. And like you'll see it at the catch point sometimes, where he just gets a little bit nonchalant and you allow someone to now work through you. Now, this isn't persistent. Every now and again, right? But like just something to sort of watch out for there. The thing that I disagree with, because I see a lot of it now that, now people are kind of going at Jordyn Tyson. There's questioning his toughness and questioning this and that. He played through that hamstring injury as long as he could last season, 2025, and the coaches will tell you he didn't want to miss any time at all. Dillingham was saying that in the moment. of like, no, I had to explain to Jordyn, like, your injury is, you cannot medically play, bro. You have not been cleared. No, you're not playing on Saturday. That's the kind of player he is. So toughness, I don't think are the issues that have been, portrayed, but the thing that is real are those medical concerns.
And it's different injuries. It's so tricky because on one hand, you might benefit from, hey, 5-10 teams get nervous about the medicals, and now you just bought low on potentially WR1 and an explosive weapon. But on the other hand, like, you might waste a first-round pick on a guy who has 2 season-altering injuries in the next 3 years. I have a hard time figuring out to what extent to project injuries going forward in football. It's so hard. Concussions are one thing, but like ligament injuries, knee, it's some of it's so random, Thor.
It's so random, and it's more like a percentage thing, right? Like it's more, you're talking about risk thresholds because no one can know. Even those medical staffs that these NFL teams have, and all the money that they put into that, and all the different studies, longitudinal studies, and like all this different stuff. Like, you can't do anything better. You can't tell the future. All you can do is sort of give an idea to your evaluators and your coaching staff. This is what we think the risk profile is, right? Long-term and short-term. So what are those folks going to, when they were the medical folks and they return from the medical rechecks in Indianapolis this week, what are they going to tell their teams about Jordyn Tyson? And I do expect Jordyn Tyson to fall, even though I think he has the game of the wide receiver one in this class. He is going to fall because of those medical concerns that, for instance, the guy that we're about to talk about does not have. But if he is not injured at the next level, Phil, I think there's a real shot that Jordyn Tyson goes down as the best wide receiver from this class. But to your point, you also have that risk of it just going kaput if it's every single season. So I think that's why you're going to see Jordyn Tyson fall probably early 20s. Late teens, early 20s, I think is probably where I would peg it right now, but it's hard to say, right? Because, every single individual human being has different risk thresholds, right? And every organization has different risk thresholds. And then you're going to have people arguing in the war room. So when does a team, organization plant the flag of like, no, we want Jordyn Tyson with this pick? We'll have to see, but there's huge upside if you hit that one right.
Listen, I don't mean to make every single Football Takes episode about the Vikings, but selfishly, I'm going to make it about the Vikings. 3 different times in franchise history in the last 20 years, they have been the beneficiaries of other teams maybe not having a wide enough risk profile. Adrian Peterson fell to the Vikings. Boom, take him, even though it wasn't an immediate need. Randy Moss back in 1998 fell to the Vikings, not for injury. Peterson was injuries. It was like a collarbone or whatever it was. And then Randy Moss was more off the field and character stuff, and Percy Harvin was more character too. But, man, I just wonder, is there a surprise team? And the Vikings would be one if they want to run 11 personnel. And Kyler Murray's best season of his career was 2021, where they ran a boatload. They ran 90% 11 personnel. So I wonder if there's a sneaky team in there as Tyson falls, if it happens toward the 20s, where they'd be like, nope, way too talented, even though it's not an obvious need for us.
And here's what I can guarantee you won't see it coming, right? Because we head into this pre-draft process. You go back a year ago, and then all the way up until you start this pre-draft process, it was always assumed that Tyson was going to go higher than this. His skill set and his talent level is such that it demands that. But with the medical thing now, and we expect that he's going to start to fall a little bit, but one of those teams down the board is not going to go to their media contact and be like, who we really want to fall? They're not going to. So you're going to see an all quiet on the Western front, and then someone's going to pounce. Denny Green with Randy Moss back in the day, and I'm not saying that Tyson is Randy Moss, but like as he starts falling down, there's going to be some of these teams that right now are super duper interested, and everyone be quiet about Jordyn Tyson. You get asked about him, nothing. Say you're concerned about the injury, and that's it, right? So it's going to be. He's one of the fascinating guys that has a band of outcomes in the first round of where he could go. So I'm curious to see how that plays out.
No eye contact. All right, and that brings us to WR1 on Thor's wide receiver board here.
I think you got to give it to Carnell Tate at this point, and with the context that we just gave there, I think that Carnell Tate should be pretty close to the consensus wide receiver one at this time. Ohio State receiver, obviously, perhaps he would not appreciate that I am comping him to a Michigan Wolverine and Nico Collins, but I think their games are pretty similar. Carnell Tate, 6'2" and a quarter, 192 pounds. He one of the youngest receivers in this class, just turned 21. But he broke out this past season after he moved into the wide receiver 2 role when Emeka Egbuka, the aforementioned Emeka Egbuka, was off to the NFL. Carnell Tate turned in second-team All-American honors in 2025, despite missing 3 games with a calf strain. Still puts up 51 catches, 875 yards, 9 touchdowns. 5 of those touchdowns were 40-plus yards, Phil, and that I think it bears mentioning because this guy's such a good possession receiver as well, and devastating inside the red zone for reasons that we'll talk about in a second. But he can also generate those plays downtown and run into some dingers. Really, really good hands on this guy. 0 drops last season, 87.5 win rate on contested catches as well, which is utterly ludicrous. But Tate, rangy guy, long levered, silky smooth possession receiver. He's a route technician, runs the full route tree. He's not super sudden and explosive, but he does run the full route tree, and he runs it well. Impressive release package, so you're not getting him off the line. He's going to start every rep with a head start, and he's going to finish it out because of the amazing ball skills. And again, he's fastidious with the route running, the stride length, the tempo, all that stuff. He does some head deeks and like different stuff like this, try to manipulate defenders. Very slick with it. One of the things that just leaps off his tape is the body positioning with him, and along the sidelines in particular. And I brought this up, I don't know, a couple months ago or maybe it's during the fall on another show. But when you watch him, and it's Ohio State, and you see that frame, you see his long arms, and you see how damn good he is around the sidelines. It's like he doesn't need eyes down to know where the white is, right? And he's one of those guys that can reach over and steal balls from the it's hard not to start evoking a Ohio State wide receiver from the 1980s that did a lot of that stuff as well. Now, that was before my time, but I saw plenty of Chris Carter's highlight film from Ohio State, over the years as a Viking fan. And I'm not comping Carnell Tate to Chris Carter, but it is one heck of a skill to have where you always around the sidelines or in the end zone or, when you're working around stuff like that, the awareness that he has of where his man is, where is the boundary, what do I have to do to get my feet in, different stuff like that is just high end with Carnell Tate. I think the floor is sky high with Carnell Tate. The ceiling, I don't think it's quite as, I don't agree with some people that think he's like this alpha wide receiver 1. But, whether Nico Collins, another guy he plays similar to is T. Higgins. So I think this guy is, I think it's going to be similar to Nico, but if a team that already has an alpha wide receiver 1 takes him, I think this guy would profile as an amazing wide receiver 2, just like T. Higgins, right? And who knows? But if the Giants ended up taking Carnell Tate, you talk about one hell of a complimentary wide receiver 2 to Malik Neighbors. Jackson Dart would be salivating. There's a couple other situations where it could be like that, but it'll be interesting to see with Carnell Tate, but he brings a lot of skill to the NFL.
I love it. And you see this with a lot of Ohio State wide receivers because Ohio State will run the ball down your throat. You got to earn your targets. The 70.2 PFF run block grade serves him well, too. He's not above run blocking.
No.
Some receivers.
No, I mean, Phil, you go to Ohio State, and I don't care what star you are as a wide receiver, you have to work up in the most stacked depth chart, room in college football. These last several, think of all the first-round receivers that we had from Ohio State. You better block. And Brian Hartline's going to make sure that he said that, these guys are all amazing, but, you don't get on the field till you block. So you have to learn how to do that to get out there above all those other studs that they have.
Yeah. There it is. The top 10 wide receivers in this year's draft class, according to Thor Nystrom, draft connoisseur, draft sommelier. Be on the lookout for more positional rankings here. And again, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you enjoy Football Takes on the Football Takes YouTube channel. For Thor, I'm Phil. We'll see you guys next time.